All right, we're talking with Navy SEAL veteran John Timar with Killcliff Clean Energy Drink. So, John, thanks for being here today. Looking forward to hearing your great entrepreneurial story. Before we do that, take us back. Tell us what you did as a Navy SEAL.
Hey, Joe, thanks, man. It's great to be here today. Yeah, so I served in the SEAL teams literally when I was young. I had brown hair back then, believe it or not.
You still have hair.
Yeah. I was in the SEAL teams in the '90s. Yeah, I do. So it's good stuff. Yeah, so I served from '95 until '99. So I did an enlistment, and I decided at that time to get out. There wasn't much going on. We were doing a lot of peacekeeping missions when I was in the SEAL teams. I went through BUDS in class 206, and I ended up at SEAL Team 8 with a great group of guys. And we were doing deployments over into the Balkans, the Middle East, a lot of stability operations at that time, you may recall. Bosnia had come to an end. Kosovo was kind of ramping up. The embassies were bombed. I was overseas when that happened. But I was in a standard strike. Back then they called it a strike platoon, which served the battle group. At that time, it was the Eisenhower battle group. We also served the Siege of Sodif over in Bosnia, a couple of the SEAL units who were deployed in different parts of Europe. And then we had the remit if there's operational requirements in parts of Africa. There wasn't a NAVAF or a SOCAF back then. So that was part of the remit. So I went through, I kind of do things in life. I hit it hard and fast and do what I do, and then I move on. That's kind of what I did here. I got out at the end of my enlistment and decided to go back to college. And I had some other career goals, things I wanted to do. So I went back on the Navy College Fund, and it was the GI Bill / Navy College Fund. It was back then. I think it was just shy of $40,000. It was about $38,000, which seemed like a lot until I started going to school full time. It was enough to keep me afloat, but it was really hard making ends meet during that time. So I went straight through 3 years of college, and it kind of led to a career of many, many different things after that. Just to backtrack, when I initially went to college, I had some objectives that I was trying to achieve. Being in the SEAL teams, when I was in the SEAL teams, operationally, there just wasn't that much going on. I deployed. I spent a lot of time just kind of showing up and training with other forces rather than actually doing anything. And so I was looking for different career tracks at the time in the intelligence community. And I had in my mind certain jobs that, as I understood, required college. So that was really the impetus for going back on the college fund. And what I will say is that, like, absolutely everything I wanted to do, nothing worked out like I thought it was going to work out. So that's kind of my military in a nutshell. Did you want me to keep going, or you got some questions for me on that?
Well, I just wanted to hear, like, so after college, what other occupations and jobs did you find yourself in, and ultimately how you ended up jumping out on your own and going into entrepreneurship?
All right, that's a great question. So when I finished college, at first I couldn't get a job. Initial job I took out of college was a job as a financial advisor, which was a pretty popular thing back then.
Yeah.
And I did that. I went through all the training, and I got admitted to grad school at the University of Chicago. So that was a pretty big deal. And they threw me a scholarship, a merit-based scholarship, not an academic scholarship, just to be clear. But it was a merit-based one because I'd been in the Navy and done this cool stuff. So that was pretty cool. It covered most of my tuition. So I took that opportunity. So I ended up getting out of college. I literally crashed in my parents' basement for a year. Rewind, I'm in my mid-20s. Late 20s, crashed in my parents' basement. I worked as a financial advisor. I got a scholarship to the University of Chicago, and I went, and I did that was a 2-year program. And it was during that time that, so the whole time I was living in my parents' basement and working as a financial advisor, I was applying for all these jobs in the intelligence community, and I couldn't get any callbacks. I was like, what's going on here? I'm a Navy SEAL. Everyone should want me. Nobody wants me. What's going on? So that was my experience. And so then when the grad school came up and they're like, hey, we have this, this opportunity for you, at the time, it was policy, international policy, because I was still in this mindset of pursuing this other career path, which I left the SEAL teams to pursue, I I got that. I just went off and I did school. It's funny because started getting some of the callbacks that I've been waiting for when I finally was in graduate school. Like it was just a timing thing because after September 11th, these organizations got flooded with applications, and this is before artificial intelligence. This is before like they had figured out their processes for screening and getting through. So it took a long time. So it actually took a couple of years before I started getting callbacks. But at that time, I was on a different trajectory. I'm like, all right, I've waited around long enough. I'm moving forward with life. And so I was in school, and I got a job actually working in a British private security firm. Imagine that, called Control Risks, and it was really cool. So I was involved in these huge programs that they had supporting a variety of government commercial organizations in Iraq. We had projects in parts of Africa like Sudan. We had projects over in Indonesia. And so our team had kind of found all these projects and we won them. And that's kind of the first, that was really kind of an entrepreneurial job because we incorporate a subsidiary inside their business to sort of mitigate risk. And there was only a group of us, a couple former SEALs, some Hollywood guy, and a couple other people with like spooky backgrounds. And next thing you know, we're buying armored cars from Colombia and shipping them to Iraq. And we have teams of like 500 people on the ground in Iraq. And we were, recruiting from, we had recruiting depots in different countries in the world. And it just turned into this massive operation. that's what gave me the taste of like the business grew rapidly. We did $20 million in revenue in less than 2 years. And that's what gave me the taste of doing startup environments.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, hold that thought, John. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right. Back talking with Navy SEAL veteran, John Timar, excuse me, with Kill Cliff. So John, you talked about your transition out and going to school and you end up in this British security company. Other than helping you work on your British accent, I'm sure it helped. I'm sure you were able to learn a lot of good lessons. You guys really grew massively almost overnight, and it was a very good entrepreneurial experience. What happened from there?
Right. So I kind of hit the end of the road with that. It was a great experience, but the stuff we were doing, I realized there wasn't a long-term game with it. It was kind of a short-term thing. The parent company wasn't that interested in investing further in it. They just wanted to roll it out for as long as they could. But that got me thinking about what to do next. And it's really interesting because when I had gotten out, I had these other objectives when I got with SEAL teams, and my approach was I'm going to go get education, and that's going to lead me to opportunities, and it's going to give me a lot of different options. In some ways, it did. In some ways, it didn't. Like the job I did in professional services and this whole Iraq business, I mean, that was being at the right place at the right time and being a guy with the background I had. I don't think school was necessarily something that pushed me over the edge to be competitive for that opportunity, but it was something that I had a nice combination of skills, especially for a British company. They can be kind of uppity, and it worked out. It worked out well for me. But what I will say is, that whole time when I started that job when I was in grad school, so I was a contractor, and then I was a full-time employee after grad school. I was applying for things left and right that I had in my mind that I wanted to do, because I didn't want to be in security necessarily for the long haul. I wanted to do it for a little while, and I couldn't get any traction. It just like everything that I was applying for, it just wasn't happening for me. And I don't know exactly why. I had a good academic background, I had a good service background. It may have just been the time and the place, but so that's what emboldened me increasingly just to do my own thing. So what I ended up doing was finding opportunities. Because I did, when the British security company's like, yeah, we love what you're doing, but we're just going to suck the profit out of it, reinvest it into all these weird initiatives all over the world, and that's what we're going to do. I had an option of, well, I could continue doing what I'm doing, or I could go over onto the commercial side of the business and restart a career inside that company. And that rubbed me the wrong way. A great company, but it wasn't right for me. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started looking out and saying, okay, what do I do next? And what I ended up doing is I ended up getting involved in companies that were different stages of startups, but they weren't fully baked. They had some execution or some market problems that need to be addressed. And I found myself finding these productive roles in companies that a few years before, when I was on my highest of high horses, I would have said there's no way I'd ever work for that company, right? So I started, because I was kind of trying to balance being an entrepreneur and having an income. I just gotten married, I was starting a family, and I didn't have huge reenlistment bonuses. I didn't have a lot of resources. You know, I was fortunate to have most of my school paid for, but I still had loans for living expenses. Undergraduate was super expensive. I had a bunch of loans, mostly for cost of living, to supplement my income so I could pay for school and, you know, all that stuff. So I was trying to find my way into entrepreneurship where some of the risk was mitigated because the company existed. It was someone else's idea, but they were having a hard time getting it to the next place. And that's where I found a really interesting niche for myself. And I believe that's probably a very interesting niche for a lot of people that have a military service background, that want to be entrepreneurial. They might have, you know, investments, or, you know, they might have, you know, things in life going on that keep them from being fully committed to doing a startup with no revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found that these organizations will find, you know, they may not be able to compete with larger companies in terms of the types of packages they put together for you, but the amount of value you will receive professionally from it, from being able to do a lot of stuff and do a lot of stuff fast, and the amount that that group of people that you become part of, that you're working with, will value you and your input, is far beyond what I think any compensation package can provide you from like a bigger company, in terms of professional advancement, in terms of understanding the business environment, of internalizing the impact of bad decisions. That comes at you hard and fast. So I moved into a couple startups after I had that experience with that British company, because we had incorporated a subsidiary. I got the bug. I went to another startup in that sort of space. And then I took that and I used it to kind of pole vault into a technology startup. I had no technology background, but I wanted to get into a real product focused company. And I really wanted to do something in technology. So I was able to leverage the experience I have to get into a technology company. It was kind of tangentially related. And that was huge. And that is right around the time that I got involved with the Killcliff guys. Killcliff had just gotten started. I'd done these startups. By time we talked early on, but I felt loyal to the people that I relocated with and I was working with. So it took a few years before I finally came over to the Killcliff team. The founder, Todd Ehrlich, and I go way back to the mid-90s. We served in the SEAL teams together, common friends, we're friends. And it was a really interesting opportunity for me to take what I learned from building a SaaS and platform as a service software company and apply it to a beverage company, to take the new ideas that were being generated in business to business sales and marketing, and applying them to a consumer segment in a consumable space. And that just was not happening. So that's what I did when I came over to Killcliff.
That's awesome.
And yeah.
Yeah. You know, an old friend of mine had said one time, if you get out of the military and you want to get into entrepreneurship, but you don't really have an idea yourself, probably the best thing you could do is go work for a startup that's already running.
100% agree with that. And that's exactly how I was. I always was entrepreneurial. And I think it comes, like, guys who have a spec ops background, you know, that's a very loose and fast moving environment. It feels a lot like a startup company, and the amount of teamwork, the lack of bureaucracy or less bureaucracy, those sorts of things. It's where guys that really want to take risks, they want to have the opportunity to make immediate impact. It's where they thrive, I think. And I think you see lots of stories now that are out there of companies that are founded by military guys that did like that. But I absolutely agree with that. And that's, for me, it was, I was in 4 startups, Killcliff being the 4th, but we're really like at a next level now. And they were all different financial backing, all different ownership structures, all different industries. And I was able to take the best of what I learned from those different companies. And when I finally was ready to get involved in Killcliff, which they'd been around for about 5 years before I got involved, I was able to apply all those lessons to this company. And we're by far the fastest growing clean energy drink in the business. We're the fastest growing CBD drink in the business. And a lot of that's because we leaned really far forward on adopting new technologies and methods for our sales and marketing organization.
Yeah. So with Killcliff, do you find yourself, do you spend most of your time with sales and marketing, or what are you actually working on with their Killcliff?
Yeah, I mean, we're small and move fast, so I have my hands in a lot of different buckets. But I spend most of my time curating the brand. We have an incredible marketing team. We brought on a guy named John Brinkus earlier this year. He's a 6-time Emmy Award winner. You may recall a show called Sports Science that was on ESPN,
Mm-hmm.
little small segments, and it was always like a celebrity athlete doing something crazy.
Yeah.
He did that. He was the producer of that, the creator of that. They did like 2,000 episodes. So I brought him on for a number of reasons. But one of them was, in this day and age, your ability to organically create content that's compelling to an audience and get it out fast and do it all the time and do it at different levels of production. That was something we were really struggling with inside the company. Even though we were a digital company, we've been since inception. It's kind of interesting that we're selling, just unbelievable numbers of cases of drinks online. We're literally shipping these 12 packs online all over the country. It's just, that when you think about it, it's kind of crazy. It doesn't really make sense, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
expensive. How do you do that? But one of the things that makes us sticky as a business is our digital content. And that was an area where we were struggling to find a lot of progression and a lot of stuff that felt authentic and organic, and doing it within a well-balanced P&L environment. So I brought him on, and that really has helped us continue to catapult the brand. So that's where I spend a lot of my time. I mean, we are way out in the future. We're building a media company. We just launched our own record label. We're collaborating with big celebrities. We're partnering with Joe Rogan. So I spend my time in that part of the business most of the time. I hired a better sales guy than myself to run sales, so that took a lot of stress off me when I was able to pass it off. We're a beverage company. I got a long-standing beverage rock star to come in and run sales for us, and so I was able to kind of pull back a little bit on that and spend more time trying to lean forward on brand partnerships and brand identity and
Mm-hmm.
product innovation and things like that.
That's awesome. I've always heard, I think, I actually heard on Shark Tank, the beverage industry is one of the most brutal and competitive that you could ever go into. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. You would be surprised at how much money beverage companies are willing to lose to gain distribution. They're buying distribution on the shelves. They give, like, in some of the segments, they're literally giving the cases away just to drive trial and get shelf space. They'll buy shelf space out from other companies. So it's pretty cutthroat, for sure. And we found ways we've kind of forged our own path in this space by being entirely different from everyone else.
Yeah, and that's worked. Just being being different.
Yeah, it has. I mean, when we don't buy space, we have opportunities to work with buyers to support charities instead. Like, well, if you're going to give money and you have charitable goals, why don't you give it to maybe Seal Foundation, for example, who we're a partner with.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also, we're willing to turn down. To us, all distribution is not good distribution, which is a very different mindset for most of the beverage companies. And we don't lose money, which is another different mindset. We're okay growing organically without losing money at a slower pace
Mm-hmm.
than spending just ginormous amounts of money to gain distribution faster and grow faster. It's more sustainable for us. It also allows us to support our mission.
Yeah. And when you say clean energy drinks, are your energy drinks clean from most of the chemicals and stuff that you're seeing in all the other ones?
Yeah, absolutely. We have nothing artificial. We have nothing fake. No artificial flavors, no artificial sweeteners. If you go to an energy drink aisle, and this is a gross generalization, but you'll find it to be true. Even if you look at the drinks that they're being positioned as healthy and look at their ingredients, you're going to find a lot of artificial sweeteners in them. At least the artificial sweeteners. Some of the other stuff might be okay, but these guys, because caffeine as a substance is very, very bitter. If you just took raw caffeine and threw it in your mouth, just like creatine or something else, I mean, it gag a maggot. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So a lot of these beverage companies are putting massive amounts of caffeine in their drinks, unhealthy amounts of caffeine, and they're using synthetic caffeine that's made in a lab, and then they're using synthetic artificial sweeteners to mask the flavor. So it's really it's a caustic combination, and we've taken a totally different approach. We use green tea caffeine, so it's all naturally occurring. It affects your body differently. And instead of putting in, these crazy like unregulated dietary supplements in our products, we put in potassium and magnesium. Potassium and magnesium help your blood flow and hydration. So we combine that with green tea caffeine, and then what we use for to give the beverage a sweet flavor is we use a combination of stevia and erythritol. And what's interesting is either of those used independently don't taste great, but when you use them together in the right doses, it tastes just like you're drinking a product made out of natural sugar. It doesn't taste fake. It's not artificial. It's all naturally occurring ingredients. So that's what we do. And
what does stevia come from? We've used stevia a few times in baking, trying to bake low carb cookies and stuff like that. Stevia is not an artificial sweetener?
No, it's not. It's from a plant. It's a leaf. It's an extract from a stevia leaf.
So the stevia comes from the actual plant named stevia, I guess, is the question then, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's stevia.
I thought it might have been some extract of some other kind of plant or something. Okay.
So you have natural sweeteners out there and some of them are really good, and we've experimented with a bunch of them, and other drinks have tried. Some of them have tried these, but stevia is a popular one. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol. There's monk fruits become popular. We use monk fruit in one of our beverages that we ended up discontinuing the beverage because it just wasn't a competitive beverage for the category it was in.
Yeah.
So it was just too expensive to create. We put too much good stuff in it, and it just wasn't economical. It was like a better for you type of body armor. But that's a very, very difficult category to compete in because these guys, the big guys, have endless resources, and they're selling sugar water to the masses, and they're terrible for you. And so if you go into a grocery aisle and you're trying to sell something for like $2.50 or $3 for 12 or 16 ounces, and you're competing against 10 for $10. That's just a very difficult proposition.
Yeah. And so like, I'm curious about stevia. Like stevia is a natural sweetener, but how does it differ from cane sugar or at least how it affects your body? I'm just curious because we're trying to get rid of the sugar in our diet, and stevia is obviously a good alternative. So.
Right. You're asking a science question to a non-science guy. Your body definitely metabolizes it different.
So it's somehow
you're not going to see
regular sugar.
You're not going to have a glycemic spike. I mean, if you want to look at the impact, I'll tell you the things I do know. What I do know is that you're not going to have a glycemic spike in your body as a result of consuming stevia. You're also it's a naturally occurring product. It's not something synthetic created in a lab. So those are the two things I can tell you. And then when you get into configurations of the sweeteners and why we use what we use, I bring in my innovation guy to talk to you about that any day of the week if you want to have that conversation.
Yeah, I was certainly not trying to put you on the spot. I just thought because I've seen stevia around, and it's definitely a good alternative. I'm trying to think, okay, but if we're eating this, and if it says, the carb count or whatever the sugar, whatever is this, so, how is it different than the actual pure cane sugar? And the big answer, right, the most important answer there is your glycemic spike, because
that's exactly right.
If you can keep your glycemic spikes below a certain level all day long, then you're good.
And what you'll see is that artificial sweeteners also have an impact on your glycemic spike. Like sucralose will spike your glycemic index. So they're being positioned as this is no sugar and it's healthy for you, but the artificial sweeteners are actually having the same, not as high a degree impact, but they're still having the same impact on
body's
your
still
body.
Reacting to them as if it was a sweetener.
Exactly.
Or
yeah. So that's 100%. That's problematic. So, but it is. So it's very interesting, right? So when you, like you look at our drinks, you'll see there's carbohydrates in our drinks. So we could elect to have zero carbs. That's a very popular marketing message. Zero carbs, it's better for me. But people are getting zero carbs through sucralose. You have to understand that the way they're getting zero carbs is by putting artificial ingredients in your product to give it a flavor. We're not doing that. We're giving you, like, I think our recovery drink, 15, 20 carbohydrates, right? Well, if you actually break down where the carbohydrates are coming from, they're coming from a sweetener called erythritol, which is it's approved by the paleo diets and the keto diets. And the the carbohydrates themselves that you consume, your body doesn't absorb them. You end up peeing them out. So, we look at that as a win. We're like, all right, the
Oh yeah.
combination of stevia and erythritol tastes great. And then the carbohydrates that you get, yeah, there's some in the drink, but you're going to end up peeing them out and not absorb them in your body. That's a win. So, and by doing that, we're allowed that we can offer a healthier alternative to people
Yeah.
than if we were to, go
Yeah.
the
That's
other route.
awesome. Yeah.
I prefer to do that than say zero, like to say like sugar free or no sugar and just deceive a customer.
Yeah, there's a lot been coming out in the last couple of years about, zero sugar isn't necessarily the ultimate
Right.
goal here.
Right. And there's very important verbiage on the can, right? So we just actually repackaged our products and it says no sugar, right? So that's what you can say that's FDA approved if you can see that.
Yeah.
If it says like zero sugar or sugar free, it's going to be artificial ingredients. But if we say no sugar, and there's zero sugar, there's 10 grams of erythritol, and the erythritol is the carbohydrate that you end up peeing out.
Where does the erythritol come from?
It's a sugar alcohol, so I guess it's a derivative. I'm sorry, but I personally don't know the specifics of that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So where are you guys at right now? Like where is Kill Cliff in the beverage industry, the size and where are you guys going with it?
Yeah. So Kill Cliff is we've gained massive distribution. We are just looking at the numbers the other day. I mean, we're up about 275% in retail this year. We've had a really good, strong year in spite of all the many challenges out there today with the COVID environment, lockdowns, and all that stuff. And then we're up, substantially in our online business as well.
Mm-hmm.
What we've been doing as a business is moving out from we were first and foremost an online business, and then we had national distribution, which would put us in various retailers throughout the country. There's a whole sales cycle in doing that, and it's a very lumpy thing. We've been complementing that and moving out into to beverage distribution. So think Anheuser-Busch network, Molson Coors network. These guys, what's interesting about them is, they control a lot of the distribution up and down the street to convenience, C-store,
Right.
On premise to restaurants, bars, things like that, amusement parks, those types of things. The energy drink revenue, 70% of it comes from, as an industry, comes from the C-store channel. And we have, until this year, we had absolutely zero presence. So all of our growth was happening without any C-store distribution. So that's been a core focus of ours, is actually shoring up our distribution and growing our points of distribution. We have over 40,000 points of distribution now as a business, and we're continuing to build it. So we've been building out in key markets with distribution that's going to make us more accessible to people, where you can go to the local gas station and pick up a cold drink, or you can be road tripping and pick up a cold drink. So that's been a big focus of our business. And then, our online business continues to surge. Well, we have a CBD beverage, a cannabis infused beverage. And we have a whole line actually. And that is primarily an online business because the distribution in that market is it's super regulated. It's very different from state to state. And so it makes it very difficult because the outlets that can sell the products differ in every state. Some states it's fine, put it in a grocery store, put it in any sort of beverage shop, and that's fine. Some stores it can only be in supplement shops, or some states, I'm sorry. So that we primarily distribute just online, direct to consumer.
And your CBD drink, either low or no THC, is that right?
Yeah, we test it pre and post production, and our current test results, which are available in the can, is 0% THC, undetectable. It's undetectable in a 12-ounce beverage. We use a nano encapsulated hemp, which also absorbs rapidly into your bloodstream from your stomach, which is great because it's a higher bioavailability than what's commonly used in the market, like tinctures and other things like that.
Yeah. So my question is, are we going to start seeing, as more and more states legalize it for various uses, are you going to actually going to have a cannabis drink that actually has
Yeah.
THC in it?
So you mean like a drink that'll get you high?
Yeah. And that's what's coming
they,
next.
they already exist. They
Oh, dude,
exist out in California for sure. I'm certain in states where they have recreational use marijuana or medicinal
yeah, I mean,
marijuana,
it only makes sense.
Washington State, I think, I'm not sure what the California laws are, but I've heard that some of these shops in California have the THC beverages. I think one of the big beer companies, I could be wrong, so don't quote me. I think Lagunitas might have one, but I'm not sure if it's them. There's a big beer company that has one. And
You
then
could infuse it in beer, and that way you drink a beer, you get drunk and stoned at the same time.
I'm telling you, that's a crazy combination, but somebody's going to do it.
It probably already exists.
So the answer is yes, that's going to happen for sure. It's it's one of those things that scares me a little bit, because when you ingest these products, the impact is way faster, you know.
Mm,
So
yeah.
so the whole edibles game is a little bit of a different game. And as for Killcliff, that's not really on our. I mean, we're not trying to get people stoned. We are trying to give you non-psychoactive ingredients that help your body perform better in some capacity. And you know, the FDA is very stringent on what you can and can't say about, you know, the impact of CBD. And so you have to go do your own research and come to your own conclusions. There was a study recently published by the Georgia Medical College that showed in their study that CBD can reduce the impact of COVID damage on your body and help you recover faster. That's from a medical study. It's been published by the Medical College of Georgia, so you can look that up. It came out a couple months ago. Forbes has had a couple different articles this year indicating that research points towards CBD helping out with some of those ailments. And of course, I think it was in 2019, there was the first a drug. It was the first pharmaceutical that came out for epilepsy that was 100% not THC, 100% CBD. I'm sorry. So what's happening is what I think is happening, and I'm by no means an expert on the policy behind this, but I think you have a pharma lobby, you have a marijuana lobby, and you have a CBD lobby, and they're fighting over who gets to sell what to who. So, you know, CBD isolate, something that might be come in scrutiny and get grabbed, like snatched up by the pharma community, because that's a, you know, greater than natural potency of CBD that you can infuse in your body. So we use broad spectrum hemp. Broad spectrum hemp is what most of the natural food stores, like if you look at chains like Sprouts and others, that's what they want. It's from the leaf. It's, you know, you're extracting broad spectrum. It's called broad spectrum because you're extracting from across the entire plant. And then you're using a process. And again, I'm not a food scientist. I can't get into the actual process, but there's a process that's used to extract. There's different extraction processes to extract the CBD and ensure that there's zero THC, or, you know, I think the permissible limit in THC, according to the Farm Bill, is 0.3%. So your raw source has to have less than 0.3% THC. The stuff we get is well under that. And then once you dilute it and process it in a beverage, there's no THC is detectable.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, hey, John, we're getting close to the end of our time here. Appreciate what you've shared with us up to this point. If you could talk to somebody who's just getting out of the military or just recently got out and are looking to get into entrepreneurship, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, sure. I would say that a couple things are. First of all, if you need income, there's nothing wrong with a side hustle. A lot of great companies and businesses start as side hustles,
Right.
and I think you should seriously consider that if you need income, right? If you're able to invest in something and build it yourself from your ground up, that's fantastic. But what I will tell you is that you're going to lose way more than you win, and so you need to be cognizant of that. And you're going to have a ton of setbacks along the way. And, you know, best laid plans rarely work out. Things are going to shape up different. But I will say, if you're really committed to something, and you can find alignment between your ideas and making money, you're going to be a very happy person, because there's a lot of people out there that are working jobs that they just don't care about and they're unhappy. So being able to find something that is, whether you're doing it as a side hustle or it's your full-time endeavor,
Mhm.
that's super aligned with your interests, that's gonna take you a long, long way. So I think that's my first line of advice. My second line of advice is be very, very careful when you take in money, and how you take in money, and the type of money you take in, and when you take in money, because it changes everything when you take in money. You lose control. The other people are involved. Yes, it might accelerate something you're doing, but can you get there on your own without taking in money? That's a question that you need to ask yourself. So those are really my words of wisdom. Are, you're gonna fail, so be prepared for that mentally, and then learn from it and move on, because it's just gonna happen. If
Yeah.
you can find a way to do both, like to have some income and do a side hustle, that's a great alternative until you're ready to go in full Monty. And then be very careful, you know, go as long as you can without taking money. And when you take money, be very careful on what money you're taking and who you're getting in bed with, because I've seen it in many different companies. At Killcliff, we're very fortunate to have a great set of investors in the business. But I've seen other companies along the way, and I work with a lot of people there in the startup environment. They have one story after another of how things just went sideways when they brought on capital. It just changes the equation. And so those are the things that, that I would just recommend. And I think that the topic we discussed earlier, Joe, is really, really a good one, which is, there's startup businesses are hungry to get really good, strong people that can help solve problems for them, and that will move really fast, and that don't care about, they don't care about title. They don't care about bureaucracy. They don't care about that. They're just there to be productive and to learn. And if you can find yourself in one of those environments initially, the amount of experience and the connections, if they have investors, you're going to get to know those investors. If you perform for them, those investors are going to want you to get involved in other companies in their portfolio. The amount of good that can come from taking a few years and working in somebody else's startup while you're working on your own idea, to me, that's a perfect world. And that's really what I did. I mean, I've done 4 startups.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that moonshot happen yet. I haven't had the moonshot. What I will say is Killcliff is really awesome, and things that are happening are magical in our business right now. So maybe that is the moonshot.
Yeah.
But if it's not, the amount of stuff that I've learned here, the things I can pay forward, the amount of great people I work with, and it's just, we're having a fantastic ride right now. And I think that you're going to be seeing a whole lot more of us in the year to come.
Awesome. Well, hey, John, thanks for sharing your words of wisdom. We look forward to Killcliff's success here in the future, and appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. No problem. Thank you.
These 2 veterans are Oscar Mike.